Pedersen for being here. As everyone knows, Lisa Herbold represents the 1st District of West Seattle, and Alex Pedersen is the chair of the Transportation Committee. They have been very involved throughout this process. We want to keep them up to date, and they have been very good at making sure they're asking the right questions, and I want to just thank them both for being here. We know that this has been an enormously frustrating experience for West Seattle community, that this is a bridge that carries over 100,000 people a day and affects everybody who lives in West Seattle. There is never a good time to learn that this critical piece of infrastructure is taken out of service and could be failing, but we know it's even more hard during this time of the pandemic. So I want to thank everybody in West Seattle for their patience. We will be answering a lot of questions here today. There's some things we still don't know, as Sam will tell you. I also really want to acknowledge and thank the engineers at the Seattle Department of Transportation for their work over the last number of weeks. They have shown why they are essential employees working around the clock to try to ascertain what is going on with this bridge, to be inspecting it even during the pandemic to discover the great flaws in it, and want to thank our partner agencies too who are here on this call. We know that that bridge is a critical piece of infrastructure for so many of our partners, Metro, the port, and others, and we are in this together. Today, Sam is going to walk you through what the timeline looks like over the next couple, the coming months, and what we'll be doing over the next 12 months to stabilize and shore the bridge. He'll give you a timeline on both what we need to do to assess what can be fixed and how much it will cost, as well as how long it will take. In consultation with SDOT, I want to tell you certainly that I will not allow any car to go over the bridge until it is safe. I really want to thank Sam for his work too around the clock on this issue, as well as all the other we're having to address during the time of the pandemic. It's hard to believe that Sam's only been here about 16 months. He came during the snowstorm and the taking down of the viaduct. He's here through the pandemic, and now he's here for the West Seattle Bridge. So Sam, we're very sorry that you have had to handle emergency after emergency, but I will say that I have full confidence in you and the Department of Transportation on everything you're doing to make sure that we can get through this. I do want to warn people, there are a lot of contingencies that we still don't know yet regarding this project. We will have to give you information as we have it. We do not want to overpromise or tell you things that we're not certain about. We really would urge as much as people can to be patient with us. The fact that we don't have answers or our timelines may change. This is, as everyone knows, a very significant bridge. A very complicated process, and it's going to take some time to assess all of the parts that Sam's going to talk to you about. I will tell you, we're not sure about the full cause of the cracking. We have good modeling that indicates that to stop the deterioration, we need to fix a bearing on Pier 18, and we're going to have pictures to show you which pier that is. The bearing is what's between the pier and the bridge surface itself. Think of that it allows the bridge to flex and move. That has become bulged and frozen, which is caused part of the problem. But it's uncertain at this time what the data will show once we get that part repaired. So we don't have a specific timeline or cost. Sam will walk you through the ranges and what we know today about what each step will be. We do know that we need, in the long term, this bridge will have to be replaced. We don't know today whether that is the case, as Sam will explain. I know that there's a lot to think about. You will have a lot of questions, but we believe that we need to update you with everything we know as we know it. So we know there's going to be a lot of questions people ask that we just don't know the answer to yet. We're going to be working very closely with Metro to look at increasing transit service, park and rides, water taxi, every way we can to get people out of their cars and onto transit from West Seattle, and all the ways we can to make it easier for people to get to and from West Seattle. I had a call with Executive Dow Constantine today about this topic, and he will be working closely with us as well to make sure that we can work with Metro to address as much as we can the needs of West Seattle. Not on this call today is Fire Chief Harold Scoggins. We have already had conversations and they are already looking, he and Chief Best of the Seattle Police Department, at whether there is additional needs that West Seattle may need while the bridge is not in service to address any public safety needs. We'll be working closely with Lisa Herbold on those questions. She has raised with us a lot of questions, and there's historical data of how it's handled before, but we want to make sure that everyone in West Seattle knows that we will continue to serve them and offer them the services they need through this time while we're figuring out how long it will take to repair the bridge and during the repair of the bridge itself. We know that there has been, I will say the lower bridge will continue to be restricted for transit and emergency services. I know some folks have been using it, but I have to tell you, please don't drive on the low bridge. It has to be open so first responders and transit can get through. We also know that there are some load restriction issues on that lower bridge, and we want to make sure that we do not exceed the load and so lose the capability of having that bridge as well. So if you use the low bridge and you are not a bus driver, driving a bus, or a first responder, you will get a ticket. And we hope we don't have to do that, but we know how much of an inconvenience. As I said, we are going to be exploring every option we can to provide more commuter and transit capability for West Seattle. Working both with Metro and Sound Transit, we're going to be working to get people out of West Seattle into West Seattle. We know that right now the traffic is low because of the stay home, stay healthy order, and it already is difficult for people who are trying to get to West Seattle to leave West Seattle. We also know that as we begin work and look at how much this bridge replacement is going to cost and how long it will take, we will do everything we can to expedite the planning and the process so that we can do this as expeditiously but as smartly as possible. And again, we will work very closely with Chairman Pedersen and Lisa Herbold to make sure that council has all the information they need as we move forward, so that as we make different budget decisions and decisions related to the bridge repairs, everybody will have the information they need to do that. With that, I'm going to pass this off now to Sam Zimbabwe, who will walk you through, give you an overview, and then you'll hear from Councilmember Lisa Herbold and Councilmember Pedersen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Durkan, for starting and leading this very tough conversation. In addition to all of the challenges that you've had to take on in the midst of this public health crisis, we've also had to find time to become a bridge expert as well. I want to thank our colleagues at our partner agencies who've joined us today. Peter Steinbrook from the Port of Seattle, Bill Bryant from King County Metro, and Mike Cotton from Washington State Department of Transportation. They're here to show that despite the many unanswered questions we have, we're all working together in partnership to deliver the best possible outcome for the people of West Seattle. As the mayor said, there's never a good time to close a bridge. And I briefly want to thank everyone at SDOT who in the middle of a public health crisis continued to perform our essential functions, which enabled us to identify the accelerated cracking on the West Seattle Bridge and have the data necessary to make the difficult decision to close it back on March 23rd, a little bit more than 3 weeks ago. To everyone impacted by this unanticipated closure, I share in your surprise and frustration. Some may know that I am a West Seattle resident myself. I intimately understand what this closure means and the many challenges it presents. And as a person, I know that this is an incredibly difficult time for everyone. And this additional uncertainty and hardship only adds to the feelings of concern that people are already facing. Know that everyone at SDOT, the mayor, and our partners at all levels of government are and will continue to work together to identify the best possible path forward and mitigate the impacts of the closure on the way there. Safety is SDOT's top priority, and we continue to inspect the bridge daily. We are installing intelligent monitoring equipment to be able to monitor changes around the clock, as well as gather the necessary information to inform some of the key decisions that we'll have to make in the months ahead. We're modeling any potential additional cracking scenarios and preparing contingency plans that in order to preserve public safety. Now that we have removed vehicles, we do not believe that the bridge is in any imminent risk of failure, but we need to plan for every contingency. Throughout this closure, as Mayor Durkan said, we have made clear that we are committed to sharing consistent communication and transparency, even when we still have additional questions that we have to answer. We do know that a few key things, and that's why we felt it was important to come back to the public today. We need more information to determine if the repair of the bridge is feasible from a technical or financial perspective. If it is feasible to complete a full repair and bring vehicles back on the bridge, we think it will add another 10 or so years of life to the bridge itself. So in any case, we are now needing to think about replacement of the West Seattle high-rise bridge much sooner than was anticipated when it opened in 1984. We don't anticipate at this time traffic returning to the bridge in 2020 or 2021. The first step of our work to bring traffic back to the bridge is to stabilize the bridge itself. We started to do that by taking off the weight of almost 100,000 vehicles every day. And our crews have been out inspecting the bridge daily since that time. Since we removed vehicle loads from the bridge, we have seen that the cracks continue to grow, but at a slower rate than before. This is good news in that it confirms our decision to immediately remove traffic. But it does show that we still have work to do just to stabilize the bridge itself. The next step is to make repairs on one of the support structures on the east side of the bridge, known as Pier 18, to further slow or stop the cracking and preserve the integrity of the bridge. Pier 18, the mayor talked about it a little bit. There's what's called a bearing that connects the bridge deck and superstructure to the bridge, to the columns and the pier. This enables the bridge to flex and move in response to traffic loads, thermal changes in temperature, but that bearing is not moving as it should. And that's transferring some of the stress of holding the bridge through the bridge itself. And this likely has exacerbated some of the cracking that we've seen in the center span. Once we have addressed that Pier 18, the next step will be to install temporary support structures known as shoring. And that's necessary to support and stabilize the bridge as we continue to work towards repair and understand the feasibility and cost of a full repair. This will add additional support to make sure that the bridge does not crack under its own weight. But this is also a technically complicated piece of work in and of itself that will require unique equipment and materials that have a long lead time for fabrication and installation. So we don't think that work will be able to be underway until late in 2020 from what we know today. So the Pier 18 repairs are to stabilize the bridge right now, and then we need to understand exactly what we need to do to shore up the bridge and repair it to sustain vehicles. And we don't know yet whether that is technically or financially feasible. We're at the earliest stages of design, and each step will help us understand better what is feasible and how long it will take. We have an incredible team of experts here, and the deterioration of the West Seattle high-rise bridge and the needed short-term repairs are very unique and complex issues. So we will also be forming a technical advisory panel of experts from across the country in bridge design and construction, geotechnical work, marine and maritime expertise to bolster our actions and make sure that we are considering all pathways and taking the best technical information into consideration as we consider how to move forward with this bridge. We know that people living and working in West Seattle need reliable access across the Duwamish waterway. During the stay home, stay healthy order, our current detour routes are working, even if they're inconvenient. Once the stay home orders are lifted, however, there will be a greater strain. We're working with King County Metro to assess transit needs and our other partners as we continue to be flexible and creative to do our best given this challenging situation. We've so far installed additional monitoring, traffic monitoring equipment at 6 locations along the detour routes. We've adjusted traffic signal timing and continue to do so across West Seattle to manage the flow of a different flow of traffic than we're used to. We've added some transit-only lanes to reinforce the transit, freight, and emergency vehicle restrictions on the Low Bridge. And we've installed a new traffic signal at the intersection of Highland Parkway and Holden Street, Southwest Holden Street in West Seattle. We know that there will need to be additional steps that we take over the course of this closure to manage as best as we are able the changes in traffic demand. We want to thank everyone for their patience, understanding, and resilience. The bridge closure has the biggest impact on West Seattle residents, and we're working hard to get you where you need to go. We also know that this will be an ongoing area of community conversation and the need for everyone to be flexible and work over the course of time as situations continue to evolve. Again, we're working to stabilize the bridge right now, work on repairing the bearing on Pier 18, and working to answer the key questions about how and if the bridge can be brought back to normal functioning. We know that there's a lot to think about, especially during this time, but we appreciate the opportunity to start this difficult conversation. With that, I'd like to turn it over to District 1 Councilmember Lisa Herbold for additional comments.
Thank you, Director Zimbabwe. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you here today while receiving and responding to this, again, very difficult turn of events. I want to underscore the statement of both the mayor and Director Zimbabwe that safety is our #1 priority. And I believe the decisions that have been made as it relates to the closure of the bridge are the right decisions. I agree that the decisions to limit lower level bridge access to first responders, transit riders, and freight are the right decisions. But I think it's really important to recognize, and I appreciate Director Zimbabwe's reference to this, that what we're doing today to provide alternative routes will not be sufficient once traffic resumes normal levels. So that is, I think, for me, a really key message. And even though I think over the last couple weeks, we've all been talking about the fact that the bridge closures were not going to be short, we were dancing around this reality that we're facing today. And this reality is the bridge closures look like they're going to be another 21 months. And so by acknowledging that today, we can then begin the conversation about what more we can do to address the needs of the 100,000 people who travel on the West Seattle Bridge, and what we can do to address the needs of our businesses in West Seattle, which are already struggling, which I think looking forward to a new day after COVID-19 where they can begin recovery. And I think the impacts from the bridge closure are ones that we need to consider, those impacts for our small businesses as well. Again, the impact of this closure are huge. They cannot be underestimated. The West Seattle impacts from the Seattle squeeze lasted 8 months. This is going to be longer, and it's going to affect more people. We took that challenge on during the Seattle squeeze, and we're going to have to wrap our arms around what it's going to take. Again, I appreciate the fact that we have representation from other jurisdictions here with us. Our ongoing collaboration with those jurisdictions and others is going to be critical. Councilmember Pedersen and I visited the bridge yesterday with Director Zimbabwe, and it was very helpful for us to get a visual understanding of what it means for these components that we must do before making a decision about the repair of the bridge. And I also want to thank Council Member Pedersen, who's going to speak next, for his convening of the client group with SDOT, that we're meeting every 2 weeks, so that we can all stay on target and on track and understand the decisions that are being made in real time. I also want to thank the mayor's office for the agreement to stand up, or the decision, I should say, to stand up a technical advisory group. I think it's going to be really important to have council represented on that. And I really, again, appreciate the leadership of Councilmember Pedersen, who's going to follow me now, because he chairs the Transportation Committee, and he too is really committed to making sure that the council is involved in oversight, and that through council representation of West Seattle and of the transportation interests, we can better collaborate and work together towards the outcome that is necessary to be expedient and done in a way that is done in a way that recognizes the pros and cons of different approaches and their costs. So thank you, Councilmember Pedersen.
Thank you, Councilmember Herbold. Can you hear me? Good. So I want to thank the mayor for her leadership on this and the correct decision to close the bridge for safety. I want to thank the Seattle Department of Transportation for their quick work and plans to investigate and shore up and repair the bridge. Councilmember Herbold has been a passionate advocate for the residents of West Seattle and for all the uses of the bridge, including freight and the businesses. And so this unity is very important as we tackle this massive infrastructure project and get to repair the bridge with a focus on safety and efficiency. And so the City Council will play an important role in oversight, and that'll be with the committee, the Transportation Utilities Committee that I chair. Councilmember Herbold already serves on that committee. So we will be requiring frequent updates from the Seattle Department of Transportation. We are happy to hear they are setting up a technical advisory panel to leverage engineering expertise, and we will be a part of that as well. So I look forward to moving ahead as quickly as possible to, again, shore up the bridge, do the repairs, and look to the future about how we can reconnect West Seattle to the rest of the city. And happy to turn this back over to the mayor and answer questions later. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Alex and Lisa, for your leadership too, and Sam, for you and your whole team. It's an understatement to say it was not an easy decision to close the bridge. When Sam called me with the news and we made the decision within hours to close the bridge, all of us knew the significance of that. And I think if we were not in the middle of a global pandemic, it would have been all we worked on full time, but we've been working on that full time. And so to do this at the same time and to have such strong partnerships with both council members, with the Port of Seattle, with Metro, and our other partners is what has gotten it to this point. But we also know it's the only thing that'll get us through. And I again just want to echo what Councilmember Herbold said. You know, we know the impact this has on everybody who lives in West Seattle. And we are going to do everything we can to mitigate the transportation issues, the public safety issues, and the community issues that this will have for your community. You're lucky that you have, multiple council members and Sam Zimbabwe and a county executive who live in West Seattle. So you are well represented in the elected leaders who will be making some of the decisions here. But do know that there is no good time for this to happen, but for it to happen at the same time that we are dealing of a crisis of unprecedented proportion in our city has been difficult, and I couldn't be more proud of the team at Seattle Department of Transportation. And with that, we can take moderated questions for Sam or either the council members or myself, or we also have Port of Seattle and Metro here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Durkan. This first question will be for you. First question is, do you see it possible to seek federal assistance for replacement costs, or do you see this as requiring another funding resource to get it funded? Mayor Durkan, this first question was for you. Do you see it as possible to seek federal assistance with repair or replacement costs, or do you see this as requiring a toll structure to get funded?
I've already talked to both of our U.S. senators about the need for repair or replacement funds, and we'll be looking at every avenue we can. I think this is a cost of such significance that we really hope that we can get some assistance from our federal partners, but we're going to be exploring every avenue as we move forward. I'll let Sam address kind of the cost moving forward and our plan for that if people have questions on that. But I anticipate and I'm hopeful that we can get federal assistance for this, particularly if there is a infrastructure bill that comes forward from Congress as part of the coronavirus relief. We very much want to be in a position to have our information ready, so perhaps we can get some assistance there.
Thank you very much. This next question for Director Zimbabwe from Jeff Pojola from Como News. Has the city been following regular preventative maintenance schedule over the bridge's lifetime? There are a few questions here, so we'll start with that one.
Yes, we have been doing regular preventative maintenance. The original cracking on the bridge was discovered during regular inspection in 2013. Last year, we installed some grouting, some protective materials to keep water and air from infiltrating into the concrete and getting it to the steel that's at the core of the bridge. So we have been and we continue to do regular preventative maintenance over the lifetime.
Great. Second question, is bearing damage limited to one pier?
Yeah, the only place that we've identified this type of bearing damage is in the one bearing on pier 18, and there's multiple bearings and multiple different types of bearings in each pier. Right now, it is this one that we've identified this challenge with.
And final question from Jeff: the cracks, are these cracks in the bridge deck or other parts of the bridge or support structure?
Yeah, so the most concerning cracks are in the box girder, so the area underneath the roadway deck, but the piece that supports the roadway deck, the structure there, it's called a box or a girder, that's where the cracks are. So they're not visible from the street level. You can see from underneath the bridge where we've installed some of that epoxy that I mentioned before, and you can see that it sort of over exaggerates the size of the cracks, but you can see where the cracks are from the ground in the center span, and those are the places that we're primarily concerned about.
Thank you, Director Zimbabwe. More questions for you from Vanessa Misyanga from King. If SDOT knew about the cracking and have been monitoring it, why was there no plan in place earlier to repair the cracks over time?
Yeah, so we identified the cracks in 2013, and Matt Donahue, who's our lead bridge engineer, or roadway structures engineer, likes to consistently remind me that concrete structures crack and are intended to crack, and it's the way that the trajectory of how they are cracking and where they are cracking when we start to get concerned. So we began in 2013 to step up our monitoring regime and inspection regime of looking at those to understand how they were growing. We did not see substantial growth in those cracks. As we updated our load rating, our understanding of how the structure was performing, and mapped the growing cracks beginning in sort of last year, we saw that those cracks were growing at an accelerating rate. As we continued to do inspections and understand what was happening, that crack growth continued to accelerate. So we are still understanding exactly what's going on with the structure itself. Those cracks have slowed down in their growth since we removed vehicles from the bridge. And now we are working to understand how to stabilize and then repair the bridge itself. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Question from both Vanessa and Erica Barnett. If it will cost $33 million to figure out the bridge, if the bridge can be repaired, and it will only buy 10 more years, why do that instead of replacing the bridge entirely?
Sure. So, we've put out a little bit more information about where we are and the costs that we have just to stabilize and shore the bridge. And those are the first two phases before we get to repair. And we think that will take about $33 million from where we currently sit. And we're still understanding what is going on with the bridge itself. And we're gathering more information about how that informs our approach. The cost of replacing the bridge entirely would be another order of magnitude higher cost than that. If there is an opportunity to extend the life of the bridge, and as we plan for replacement, we will do that. But there's a lot that we still need to understand from a technical and financial perspective of exactly what it will take to bring the bridge back online for vehicular use.
Thank you. Director, this may be for you, but this may also be for our council members. This is from Tracy Record, West Seattle blog. In this time without public gatherings, what is being planned for the community to play a significant role in discussing these mobility solutions aside from email?
Sure. So I think we're all learning new skills and approaches to how we engage the public. We anticipate, we're developing new ways to host public meetings and provide for the broadest forms of public involvement. But that is something that we'll still need to gather. I think it will be a community conversation about just how and what is going to happen with this bridge, and we'll look for every way possible to engage with the public.
Yeah, and I would add to that we will work with council. I think we want to have as many virtual town hall like events that we can. There's a number of technical ways to do that, and have, try to use as much tech as we can, because we know that this is critical to the community. We need to hear from you as we move forward. Whatever option we choose, we know that the impacts are real. And it's not just the bridge itself and replacement, but we also understand that the way we are trying to mitigate the traffic, the ground truth is felt by the community. And we're going to have to, on an ongoing basis, hear from you, see how it's working, and adjust. So I think that's a really good question.
And I just want to add that my office has been discussing internally our interest in having a virtual town hall. Some of my colleagues have begun to do so, specifically focused on COVID-19. I'm interested in doing a virtual town hall focused on the impacts to West Seattleites because of the bridge closure, and having that engagement, not just around what those impacts are on the ground. I agree with the mayor, that's really important for us to hear, but also engaging the public on planning around next steps forward. Thank you.
This next question is not specifically for an individual, but I believe this may be for the mayor or for Sam. Can you speak more about the levels of transportation agency involved in discussions of a mitigation plan? And the example given here is rerouting ferries, for instance, through downtown instead of Fauntleroy.
So, well, I would say that we are having those conversations with agency partners, those that are on the phone and or on this that participating here and others about all of the possibilities of how to look at mitigations. I think there are some challenges with the capacity of Coleman Dock for ferries to come in there, but I think those are all open questions, and we'll need to look at every possible opportunity now that we know more that this is going to be a longer term closure.
Thank you. Let me see. We have a few more questions here. Actually, where are we at? Okay. Following up on the interagency discussion, again from Tracy Record, West Seattle blog, has Sound Transit, if Sound Transit will need a Duwamish River bridge anyway, have they been brought into the discussion of a possible new bridge?
I'd say
the short answer is yes, but it's, you know, we're far enough away, but I think both Sam and I have had discussions with Peter that if that's the route we have to go and we're going to be building a new bridge, we're going to have some discussions on whether it makes sense to combine those efforts and reduce costs. The thing we don't want to do, though, is lose time. So I think it's going to be, they're going to be at the table talking about, you know, we're going to have everyone we can at the table to figure out the best and most expeditious and most economical way we can go about this.
Thank you. Last question here is for Mayor Durkan from Mike Lindblom, Seattle Times. Mayor Durkan, you mentioned park and rides plus more transit as part of the solution after COVID-19. Park and rides run counter to longtime city policy, but has been used on a small basis in January 2019. How widespread do you believe the park and ride network would need to be, and do you have a few obvious locations in mind?
Mike, that's a great question. We don't yet, and I'm going to really rely on Sam working with Metro and all of our partners to figure out how the system works together and where the most opportunities are. I think the reality is, given how long this bridge is going to be out, that we're going to have to do more of everything, and we're going to have to be really creative and innovative about how we do it. And not just to get people in and out of West Seattle, but, you know, there may be ways we can get direct transit going only to Sound Transit stations or the like. So we're going to have to do all of the above, and we're going to have to do more of it, but we have to plan it as a system so that we make sure we're serving all parts of the West Seattle community, depending on where they are. And so Sam has already started looking at that, talking to our partners. As he said, everyone, including I think the state and the ferry system, may have to have some part of this discussion. But we don't know the answer to where any of it will be, but we just know that we're going to have more routes, more ways for people to get in and out of West Seattle.
Thank you, Mayor Durkan. That was our final question for today. I realize we weren't able to get to all of these questions, so I want to assure everyone attending in the crowd that we have a record of all the questions asked, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you all for attending today on this update for the West Seattle Bridge High-Rise Safety Project.